Welcome to Judaism Today, a program of Jewish thought, news, and commentary brought to you by the Chabad House of Cincinnati through the courtesy of this station. Located at 1636 Summit Road, the Chabad House is part of an international network of outreach and social programs assisting young and old with their physical and spiritual needs. Hosting the show and focusing on relevant topics of interest is Rabbi Sholom Kalmanson, Director of the Chabad House of Cincinnati.
Experience a rich feeling from the Master Furrier, Stanley Rich Furs, 7534 Reading Road. Their phone number 761-4702. Feel rich with Stanley Rich Furs in the Roseland area. We have with us in the studio today a renowned figure, an individual who travels the world. Alice Peerce is someone who has been involved with Israel Bonds ever since the first day of its inception, is on the national board, and has received many, many awards of various organizations. We are fortunate to share the podium with Alice today and discuss a little bit of her life, a bit of the work of Bonds and its achievements in the United States of America. Alice, welcome to our studios today. And I guess we should start right from the beginning. Maybe you should tell our listening audience, what is really Bonds for Israel?
It's very interesting. First, Rabbi, let me tell you I'm very happy to be here visiting with you. And then I'll tell you, Bonds for Israel is used solely and wholly for the infrastructure of Israel. It is used to develop the economic structure of Israel, where it needs the money in roads, in development of electricity, of water lines, of railway system, of everything, agriculture, it doesn't matter what it is. That is what bonds are used for.
It's interesting that you bring it up because I would really like to dispel the notion that's been hit lately in the national television and in the networks that the United States government is giving Israel American tax monies so they can divert that into construction and into development of the West Bank and the Gaza and taking it away from development of Arab territories.
It's absolutely not true. Up to date, in 31 years that Israel Bonds exists, we have sold $6.5 billion of bonds. $3.3 billion has been honored, and we have never ever defaulted on a bond. It has nothing to do with the government. It is money that is invested strictly in bonds. It's a note between Israel and the person who makes a purchase.
I know you travel around the world.
Yes.
You meet communities all over. You've been virtually in every corner of the world. How do you find Jewish responses to Israel in general and to its problems specifically today?
Very enthusiastic. It is no matter, because Israel has done nothing but enhance the stature of the Jew since its creation.
Well, it's very true. If somebody is going to fool himself and think that a Jew in the United States or any other part of the world is going to get the proper respect, if you will, from the world around without a strong Israel, obviously that individual is making a big mistake. But unfortunately, we are seeing more and more criticism against the country. We're seeing more and more where everybody's sitting in judgment of the country. Here they have misdealt supposedly the terrorists, and here they have done this, and here they have done that. Why are we sitting so much on the defense seat as far as the world is concerned? Who are they really to judge us?
That's a good question. Who are they to judge us? But they judge. This is human nature. They find, I think they use us as a scapegoat. They did from the beginning of time. It's not fair, because so far we have stood up, and it's the Jews in the world and those people that are not Jews who have been our friends. The investment in bonds has been 25% not Jewish money. Insurance companies, banks, investment companies, pension funds, unions that have felt that the investment for Israel's security is a safe thing. We are not allowed to invest the money in armaments.
Can you tell a little bit to our listening audience, if there's someone out there that who may be interested or who would like to know how all this functions? If someone should want to purchase a bond, what does it take? Is this something that they can buy today and cash in tomorrow? Is this something that they have to hold? What are the dividends? What do they get back in return?
Well, that's a very good question. And let me say, I would suggest that they call the bond organization in Cincinnati and they could purchase a bond from $500 up to $1 million bond. A $500 bond is held for 15 years. You get 4% interest. There are variations. They have it when you, of course, you get to the $1 million bond, you have a floating rate. A floating rate means the interest that's given to anyone, any bank will give you, the going interest of whatever it may be. We now have created a $250 certificate, which will not pay interest, but if held, it will have more value in Israel itself, or if held to completion in 5 years, it will be worth more than $250. But it is a certificate. It is not a bond. We have created something that is wonderful in the name of Eleanor Roosevelt this year. Because of her centennial, we have created a bond of $2,500, which is held to completion, I believe, is 12 years, and pays for 4%. But I feel that 4% and the differential between what you could get for your money in another place is our involvement with Israel for the emotional value, and it is up to us to help Israel.
Well, I'm sure that if somebody's going to want to buy a bond over $1 million, you'll accept it as well.
Oh, of course.
And on the other hand, as you pointed out very eloquently, that when someone is purchasing a bond, they're not doing it for an investment, because if it would have been an investment, they can get probably better returns somewhere else. But it is an obligation of each individual to do something, at least to see that we do have a strong Israel, because it is the only democracy in the Middle East. Let's not kid ourselves.
Talking about that, I just spoke in Montreal last Wednesday, and the purchases were made of $3 million that night, but one gentleman bought $5 million in large, in the $1 million bracket, so that there's no such thing as not. And though banks are failing all over the world and falling short of the money that they have to repay, Israel has never, ever done this. And so,
as hard off as it seems to be the economy there, with all its inflation, yet this has been respected and honored very well.
Exactly, exactly. They are hard up, and they have these difficulties, but they have never, ever faltered on a payment of any kind of loan.
That's better than what New York can say for itself, pretty close at least anyway.
How true, how true.
Getting a little bit more personal into yourself, you are heavily involved in a lot of organizations with youth and drug rehabilitation projects. You're involved with Chabad in many projects, immigration of Soviet Jewry, as well as drug rehabilitation projects. Can you tell us how do you find the reawakening, if you will, or the rejuvenating of the Jewish youth today, and why?
Well, we all imagine or we think that is the answer, but I think the youth has been in such a permissive state for so long that they are at a loss to have a sense of security, which actually came out of the family circle originally. And in a religious atmosphere, or a family that is religious, a child has greater security. And so the return to religion, or the return to Chabad, is a beautiful thing. They feel that they're wanted, that they're needed, that they're developed as individuals.
I'm going to become even more personal. I noticed before, as you walked into the studio, that you had a very, very nice, beautiful pin put to you, and I was told that that was of great significance, and I really would like perhaps to tell us a little bit about it, because it may be nothing more than a token of significance, so to speak, at least externally speaking when somebody sees it, but it must mean a lot.
It does mean a great deal to me. It was the first pin that I received as an honor from Bonds many years ago. At that time, a person received this, a woman. Actually, it's the symbol of the Women's Army in Israel. And it was given to a person who either bought or helped sell $100,000 worth of bonds. Today, it's $250,000. Due to the inflation, $100,000 hasn't got such a...
I always keep on telling people, chai today means $55. You know?
Right, right. And it's called an Ashes Chayil, a woman of valor, whose value, they say, is worth more than rubies. It's nice to be classified that way, but I think it's greater to be inspired by the basic fact of what it means.
Alice, we know that you deserve every bit of it, and it's interesting that from the Jewish perspective, a woman of valor is not just a nice, beautiful, flowery statement said so, but the Talmud always says that the woman generally is considered the crown of the husband. And therefore, you know, from the Jewish perspective, there is no need really for woman's lib and this feeling a second-class citizen, because if one really understands the differences in roles of the two, understands that the woman plays a more important role than the male in Jewish life.
It takes a while for people to understand that, because their first reaction is that the woman plays the secondary role, especially in a religious life, but it's not true. She really has the control. I believe that we're a matriarchal society.
It's very true.
Yes.
It really is very true.
Yes.
But I'm sure in your travels, do you come across with the question of people asking you, how do you feel about the role of the woman from the Jewish perspective?
Especially they ask me because they feel that I am what, quote marks, an emancipated woman. But it isn't so. I was emancipated as soon as I was born a Jew. A Jewess.
Jewess.
Yes, yes. And it's interesting, the different reactions you find all over the world. But I find that those people that I meet that are religious, as I am, have a inner serenity, really a serenity. Not really an acceptance of life, because we have to fight our way every day of our lives. But that serene feeling that we know that the Hashem is with us.
You do a lot of travel. You end up in the most remote parts of the world.
Right.
How, as a religious person, can you achieve that, traveling, being away from kosher facilities, and yet being able to keep up with it? Because, you know, you speak to someone in our own community, and the immediate reaction is, you know, if food would have been more accessible, oh boy, we would have kept kosher, and if our boss wouldn't be bothering us so much, we would have been able to keep the Sabbath and so on. And yet, we can show them and demonstrate with you, and particularly, how you can not only live at home, but you can even be on the road far removed from everything and yet be able to keep everything.
We did very interesting things. When we went to Japan, I carried kosher meat in a special bag that I bought in Abercrombie and Fitch. When we went to Russia, we carried all canned goods, and they ridiculed us there. What was it so important to have this food and that their food was better? But there were certain things that you could eat, like vegetables, salads. You know, you find a way. Eggs, hard-boiled eggs. I remember a certain part of our lives when we used to travel on the trains, Jan and I, we used to order the boiled eggs in a glass cup. And we survived that, and then we went to a little more. We ate a piece of fish occasionally, but there was a way, and there's still a way. And I think, too, food doesn't seem to be the ultimate or the most important. Oh, I won't tell you that I don't enjoy a nice hot fudge sundae occasionally. I wouldn't be human if I didn't. Or something else that may be just as delicious or rich. But you find that it isn't the most important thing. I recall speaking to you now of a very interesting incident that happened to us in Hong Kong. The governor of Hong Kong invited us for lunch, and so the Odells who had brought us there I suggested to them that instead of embarrassing anybody, if they prepared a salad and put it in front of both Jan and myself, that everything would be quite all right. But the governor said no. He said everybody would eat the same thing we ate, and they poached a salmon and we were 30 people at lunch. They poached a salmon specially so that we wouldn't be embarrassed to eat it, and everybody at that table had what we had.
Well, it does show that if one sticks firmly by his principles, people do respect it. It's not something you lose your respect.
In the United States, in Little Rock, Arkansas, where Jan went for a concert, the governor flew in kosher food from Memphis for us.
It's very interesting.
So that it can be done. And let me say, even if they don't fly in this special food, there's always something in a restaurant
that can be handled.
That could be handled. Fruit, vegetables, eggs.
I've always revered Jan very, very much, and I really loved his performances, and every opportunity that I've ever had really to see him and to listen to him, I was there. Tell us a little bit about his successes, how he made it, the parts of the world he ended up with, because I understand he performed for kings and everybody. Tell us a little bit about it.
Let me say, it's hard to begin. Jan was a violinist first, and he was a good violinist. And then he was, well, the struggle started. I remember that when Jan did an audition for a man who represented Earl Carroll, they were vanities in the early 30s. I mean, perhaps you aren't even old enough to remember that. And when Jan went to audition for him, we already had a baby. And he said to Jan, he could give him, he said, what a wonderful pair of pipes. He said he could offer him $60 a week. He said, $60 a week? He said, it wouldn't pay for my rent. Fortunately, at that time, my parents were supporting us. He said he couldn't do it. He said, well, he says, I'll tell you, Mr. Peerce. He said, if you were 6 feet tall and a handsome man, we could make it. And Jan went on to prove to the world you did not have to be 6 feet tall. You didn't have to look like a movie star, though he stood tall and high and has sung in the 4 corners of the earth. We were in Australia, New Zealand, in Alaska when it was first established, in Hawaii, South Africa, in Rhodesia, in all parts of Europe, in Russia, in Japan, in Hong Kong. We were all over, and he showed everybody that this God-given gift was given to him to give to the world, and we are very grateful.
Well, Jan has a charm about him that always drew someone, a little kibitz here and a little joke there and a smile. In addition to just being the so-called cold singer, he always had that
he never was a cold
draw to him, and it was very...
He was
very
never a cold singer. He emanated and projected the human being that he is.
Well, I think even when he sang a Yiddish song, you didn't even understand the words. You could have probably followed along just by the emotions moving along with it.
I can say that I forgot to say it at the Cantors Assembly last week, that he was the first concert singer to put into his concert program cantorial and Yiddish paragraph. He did that in Russia too. He was the first singer to sing a Jewish song in Russia in 38 years. That was in 1956.
Going back to Israel a little bit, I'm sure you visited Israel many, many a time.
I'd say about 40 times.
40 times. How can you at least describe in terms of, again, Bonds, its developments and its workings, how can you develop, at least tell our audience, describe a little bit how you found Israel developing its modernization? It's, you know, they call Israel today almost mini America. Whatever you find here, you know that in a couple of weeks it'll be there. How do you find the development? How have you seen something go from virtually nothing to a big, mature little boy?
Astounding. Our first visit to Israel was in 1950. The Philharmonic, the Israeli Philharmonic, invited Jan to sing with them. And there was a tzena there, which of course you understand, and for the audience's sake, to say that it was literally starvation. There was nothing to eat. They had eggs that were dreadful. We had canned goods that other people gave us to eat. And today, shall I jump that entire period? We were there when Golda Meir opened the Kvish, the road to Haifa. We were there when the train was extended. I was in Ashdod in 1960 when there was absolutely nothing there, as flat as this floor. And 9 men and I signed a parchment which was inserted into a rock as large as this studio and sunk into that rock. Today, I was there 2 years ago. It is the largest, one of the most modern and sophisticated ports in the world, with containers, with everything. I just wandered around and I was just thrilled to death. And hotels, the best hotels. I want to say that in 1950 we had to use a WC, which was not our experience, though Jan knew about it from the Lower East Side in New York, but I had never experienced it in my life because I came from another area. And today, the finest hotels, the best of foods, the most incredible things, clothes. Israel has established itself as one of the finest fashion areas in the world. Israel perfected a jet because France reneged on supplying a small part to complete the jet.
The Mirage.
The Mirage. And then Israel has perfected a tank because England refused to complete it. So the Merkava, I believe the Merkava is completed, and this came from absolutely nothing.
Well, I guess the world has actually witnessed it now in the Lebanese crisis, what Israel has achieved on its own, as you say, with the tank and with the planes, and I guess that the free world, even the United States, is trying to seek at this point to pick up that technology that Israel has managed to develop. As small as it seems to be and as young as the nation seems to be, but in desperation, I guess, have managed to develop quite a bit and have quite a bit to offer to the rest of the world, as a matter of fact.
As a matter of fact, many years ago, when the desalination program started with Fairbanks Whitney, they took Israel as partners. And Israel developed a way of watering the plants within a plastic bag, which had not been done here. And the desalination started there and not in the United States, because they've turned this desert into a flourishing agricultural center.
Well, I guess Israel is really exporting its knowledge and its technology to other countries, special third world countries and so.
Right. Just to experience a Jaffa orange when you're in Vienna or in Holland or France or wherever it may be, certainly in the United States. But for us, it's a special thrill when we experience it in the four corners of the earth.
That's very true. That's very true. When we look around the world a little bit and we see the way Israel is so cautious and careful in dealing with its neighbors, trying to seek peace, trying to see everything, how would you view really Israel's presence still, if you will, in Lebanon, Israel's presence in Judea and Samaria, Israel setting itself in Jerusalem, trying to well, Israel is not really trying to persuade the world, but the world, at least at this point, is speaking in terms of moving embassies into Jerusalem and so on. How do you view all this?
I personally, I would like to see it happen. For me, it's very important that it happen, because in 36 short years, 2 times Chai, Israel has established itself as a world nation, not as a developing nation, because it started that way, because in 1950, America was sending cheese to Israel as food.
And butter.
And butter.
I guess that's what the president used for them to retreat from the Sinai originally, is by withholding the butter.
Right. So that today, to see everything happening, it's a gratification and it's a fulfillment for those of us who have devoted a great part of our lives to what we feel Israel should achieve. It's achieving it whether I think it or not. There are greater minds than mine doing it.
Well, there's no question that Israel is achieving it. The question is really, how do we best get this message across to the average grassroots individual outside who hears all the negative things coming through the media? We have to admit that the media is slanted and not towards Israel, and yet, you know, the average person really does not know what's happening and can get the impression that it's just another one of those unstable Arab countries, and that you're using my dollar for you to go kill a terrorist or whatever it may be. And this message really has to be brought to the public to know that it's not so.
Well, it's very interesting because Israel refuses, absolutely refuses, to use public relations in that level. And the Arab countries have a tremendous network of public relations. So they meet you or they meet me, who talks about Israel and our personal experiences. And even though we may be biased and prejudiced, I don't say that I'm not. But there's
nothing wrong with that.
No, I don't think so. But it's a proven point. The bankers know it today, and they accept it. The United States government accepts it. Because the more Jews that participate in our bond program, so much stronger is our impression on the government of the United States.
What do you answer to a cynic who says you have to be an American first and then an Israeli, and yet they turn around and say that it seems like the Jews in the United States have dual loyalties and perhaps put Israel before, and would even like to pressure the government to say, hey, if a contribution goes that direction, don't allow it to be tax exempt? What do we, I mean, we have to answer them. Let's not kid ourselves.
But let me say that I am a better American because I'm a better Jew. I think the very basic precept of America was we went away from countries. Our ancestors came here because they escaped the pressure of the foreign world. And we proved that we were better citizens and better people, and our concern should be with others. This doesn't mean that I'm not, in my way, I speak for Catholic organizations or wherever they ask me to speak. I speak as a human being. I speak as an example of what an American, shall I say, quote marks, Jew, born in the United States, whose parents and grandparents, my grandparents, came here in 1899. So that we've established ourselves here. We've put our roots here. Our children and my grandchildren are Americans. That doesn't make us less American and more Jewish, or more Jewish and less American.
Well, I usually tell these cynics that it's very interesting. These are cynics who like to assimilate and become part of everybody else. And my question really to them is, why do the Spanish call themselves Spanish Americans or Greek Americans or whatever else, their nationality first? And when it comes to themselves as Jews, they say they are American Jews, not Jewish Americans. And, you know, if you want to really follow everybody else, then fine, follow in this aspect as well and say that you're an American Jew.
I don't care what they put in front, Rabbi, really and truly. My desire is that they respond and know there are so many things they could do for Israel and so much they could do for the Jews in America.
I have to ask you, saying that your family has been in the United States for so long, what was the secret to success in keeping up Jewish tradition and commitment to Judaism for so long and not really getting carried away with the American way of life? So the melting pot.
Oh, well, my grandparents were my grandparents. You know, I remember my grandfathers with the long white beards and my grandmothers with their babushka during the week and the sheitel for the Sabbath, and my mother and father who became more Americanized, shall I say, or more assimilated. But still, the precepts of Judaism were kept. Nobody ignored that. And I hope that I've projected it to my children. And so it doesn't have to change. It's like eating kosher food on the road.
Alice, when we sit in a good conversation, time runs fast, and we're actually in our last 30 seconds, so to speak. Give us a message to the general public as to bonds and as to Israel in a closing remark.
Oh, it's difficult to put it in 30 seconds. As Jan would say, I'm a woman of a few million words. I would only like them to remember that it's with their strength as Jews in America and as Americans to invest in Israel's bonds and security.
With those words, I think we don't need a better closing, because a strong Israel means a strong American Jew as well. We urge each and every one to call your local bonds office for that particular purpose. And Jan, Alice, we thank you very, very much for being with us and sharing of your valuable time. And to you, we thank you for being with us today, and we re-invite you next week again for another interesting and educational program. Thank you. Experience a rich feeling from the Master Furrier, Stanley Rich Furs, 7534 Reading Road. Their phone number is 761-4702. Feel rich with Stanley Rich Furs in the Roseland area.
This was Judaism Today, a program sponsored by the Chabad House of Cincinnati and brought to you through the courtesy of this station. For comments and information, feel free to write to Judaism Today, 1636 Summit Road, or call 513-821-5100. We invite you to join us again next week for another interesting and informative program. Shalom, and remember, there are only 4 more shopping days until Shabbat.